Oh man, what a long day. Hey, can I get a Grizzly Rage? Oh, hi.
Hi.
My name's Keith.
Holly. You're not from around here, are you?
No, I'm not. I'm actually just passing through trying to find something.
Maybe I can help you find what you're looking for.
It's you, Holly. It's always been you.
I must look a mess.
No, yeah. Um, okay, that's better, right? I can work with that. Uh, nope, not my name. My name's Keith.
What's the matter? Josh, what's the matter?
Seriously? I just told you. My name is Keith.
Well, what are you getting at? Josh.
You just, right there, you did it again. You know what? Maybe it's better if I just leave. Yikes. Yep, I'm just gonna leave. I'll see you later. Why are the hot ones always crazy? What is going on, everyone? Welcome to VHS on Tape. My name is Keith, and on this channel, I do movie reviews for horror movies that came out in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. If that sounds like something you'd be into, and why wouldn't it be, hit that subscribe button. Also, click the bell icon, that way you'll be notified when I upload new videos. Today, we have a movie called Mutant. It was released on August 24th, 1984, and it runs 1 hour and 39 minutes. It was directed by John Bud Cardos. He's actually taken on a lot of different roles on sets, almost exclusively for B-movies. He's been an actor. This is him in Satan's Sadist. He's directed. He's been a stuntman, a second unit director, a production manager, and he was even actually a bird handler in Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds. Mutant is about two brothers passing through a small southern town when they discover that the residents are being infected with some sort of toxic or chemical waste. The movie starts off with a fairly decent opening. This guy, we never find out who he is, but to me he looks like a janitor, so I'm gonna go ahead and call him Scruffy. Scruffy is walking around a house with some nice fog going on. Love me some fog. When he finds this yellow goop on the ground. He picks it up with an eyedropper, so apparently he came looking for it. He goes into the cellar, and the music isn't too shabby here. It's actually pretty decent throughout the whole movie. While down there, Scruffy discovers a body before running into something that kills him. Next, we meet Mike in the passenger seat, played by Lee Montgomery. He was in Ben and Girls Just Want to Have Fun. Driving is his older brother Josh, played by Wings Hauser. He's been in a number of things, including The Young and the Restless and Vice Squad. We find out that Mike was recently dumped, and Josh is taking him on a vacation to get away from all the stress of the big city. Josh decides to drive like a complete jackass and almost hits a truck full of rednecks. He takes a minute to explain.
An encounter with death is like an encounter with life.
While doing so, the truck full of rednecks turns around and tries to force them off the road before finally succeeding. Can't really say I blame them. Josh definitely deserved it at least. After stopping to make fun of the brothers, the truck leaves and Josh and Mike head out on foot. You know, because they weren't driving a boat. And you may have noticed in the last scene that Mike, for some reason, has his shirt unbuttoned. Now, to me, it's obvious it's for eye candy, just like Rome in the movie Ticks. And maybe he thinks it will persuade this car to stop. I mean, he looks pretty damn smug about it. Maybe that driver prefers dad bods? Josh decides to try his luck when he almost gets run over by Mel. He is played by Stuart Culpepper. He was in the Heat of the Night. Mel offers to give them a ride to make up for almost killing Josh. And while driving, we see that Mel might be a little crazy. He's talking about hunting little green men or perverts. He's not sure which. He says he has an appointment to make, and he does look like he would be a very busy man. So he drops off the brothers so they can walk the rest of the way. When he does, he tells Mike that they should probably hurry up because they don't want to be on those roads after dark. They head off towards Goodland, and we cut back to Mel telling someone on a CB that
There's the capital city, kids passing through. No problem.
to me, this implies that he was just acting crazy to try and scare the brothers out of town, but I do have a theory about that later. The brothers get to Goodland, and we see that it's a pretty small town, but at least it has a bar. As they are looking around, this guy comes out of the bar and walks across the street in front of them, down an alley where he too gets attacked by something smoking. Mike hears him screaming and goes to investigate when he finds out that the guy is dead. And they do a decent attempt at a jump scare here. As they are turning over the body, a train comes right next to them blowing its horn. They head into the bar to call the police, and Jesus, Mike, button up your shirt already, buddy. And in case we weren't sure what part of the country this was supposed to be in, the bar decor helps us out there. Here we see that the guys who ran them off the road earlier are also in the bar. Their leader is Albert. He's played by Mark Clement. Well, I'm sure that won't be a problem. Hell, they'll even probably have a beer together. Man, just once I'd like to be right. Right before Albert turns a bar brawl into a straight-up murder, they get broken up by Sheriff Stewart, played by Bo Hopkins. He was in Sweet 16 and U-Turn, which is a really good movie. I definitely recommend checking it out. Before leaving, Albert tells the sheriff to
Suck it down so you can forget. I screwed up in the big city.
The boys ask the sheriff if he can give them a ride to a doctor's, but first they go to show him the dead guy, who has now been swapped with this guy. Apparently that's just the town's napping spot. Prime real estate right next to the train tracks and all. Mike tries to tell him that that's a different person, but the sheriff doesn't believe him, and he tells them that they should probably leave town first thing in the morning. Before leaving, we get another taste of what the music is like in this movie. And it's pretty good. I dig it. The sheriff notices and gets a sample of what appears to be the same stuff at the beginning of the movie. Next, we meet Dr. Myra Tate, played by Jennifer Warren. She was in Paper Dolls and Ice Castle. She convinces the sheriff to take the brothers over to Mrs. Mapes to spend the night. After patching up Mike, we find out that Stuart and Myra used to date, and that Stuart is apparently jealous of the guy that she's working with now, Vic. Stuart then asks if she can take a look at the sample he picked up when he discovers it's hot to the touch. We then meet Mrs. Mapes, played by Mary Nell Santa Croce. She was in The Catlins. By the way, that show ran for 552 episodes. Crazy. Apparently, she rents out rooms and her daughter is dead. She puts them up, and Josh tells her that they'll be gone first thing in the morning. While looking out of the window, Josh isn't sure if he sees someone or something carrying a body, which they never come back to. I still don't know who or what that was, and I've seen the whole movie. Then we see Mike telling Josh that he still wants to tell the cops about the body that they found. Josh says, okay, just as long as they wait until they're across the county line, that's fine. Mike tells Josh that he loves him for the first time. Wait, for the first time? Well, that can't be good. We cut back to the dock and meet Vic, and seriously, Sheriff? This is the guy you're afraid of? Something tells me nothing's going on. We cut back to Mike being woken up by a noise. He checks under his bed and it's all clear, but then something appears out of nowhere under the bed and gets Mike. And at this point, this movie was kind of reminding me of Phantasm, somewhat. I don't exactly know why, it just was. The next morning, Josh goes to check on Mike, and Mrs. Mapes is cleaning his room. And I have to say, I like how realistic the setup for this scene is. Josh had told her that they were leaving first thing in the morning, and here she says
It's almost noon.
I can totally relate to this. Mrs. Mapes says she hasn't seen Mike and that he must have gone into town, so Josh goes to find the gas station, and we then see her looking at Mike's shoes, so she obviously knows what happened to him. Plus, it happened in a bedroom in her house, so, Josh goes wandering through a deserted town before ending up back at the bar. Once in the bar, we meet Holly, played by Jodie Medford. Her only other acting credit is Chained Heat. We find out that she's the niece of the guy who owns the bar. She's filling in for him because he's sick, and her regular job is a teacher. She tells Josh that there's a gas station on the other side of town and that she has to pick up some stuff for school, but that she can give him a ride. We go back to the doctor's, and she's explaining to the sheriff that the sample he gave her was blood, except the red blood cells have been replaced with something else. She also says that she spilled some of the sample on the bloody handkerchief Mike had on his arm, and it grew about 3 times larger. While she's explaining, they hear a noise in the back room and they discover that someone broke in during the middle of the day and stole some blood samples. Cut to Josh and Holly stopping by the school, and we find out that school's been canceled because too many people are sick. We meet Billy, played by Cary Guffey. He was in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and I don't know what it is with him, if it's the way he talks or his voice, but something seems weird.
Can't, Miss Pierce. Nobody's at home.
It's almost like he's an older person trying to sound like a kid, but I mean, he's 12 in this movie, so I don't know. And as they're leaving, they hear a weird noise coming from the boiler room, and Josh decides to go check it out. In there, he finds some of that yellow blood before being hit with this. Turns out that Albert's there because he's the school janitor. And who knows, maybe he replaced Scruffy. Also, look at how calm he is when seeing a dead body. I mean, he might be an actual serial killer. He accuses Josh of killing the girl before he attacks him. Josh is able to get away and runs off. We then cut to the sheriff talking to Albert, who keeps up his story that Josh killed the girl. Holly says there's no way he killed her, and the sheriff calls for backup. His captain tells him he's on his own, and Stewart very discreetly takes a couple of shots. And I don't know what's going on with the lady in the back there. She's just kind of hanging out, swaying back and forth. Dr. Myra tells the sheriff that there's no way Josh killed the kid because she too has the yellow blood on her. Also, with how small this town is supposed to be, I don't think there would be 2 people trying to take pictures and a reporter there. Dr. Myra talks the sheriff into letting her examine the kid before bringing her to the county coroner. Stewart goes to tell the kid's parents, and he discovers their house in shambles. And when he goes to open the pantry door, discovers the doorknob is hot. He finds the girl's dad, who says this.
Hands.
Stewart calls his captain again, who tells him not to touch anything, and he'll be there as soon as he can. He takes another pull before deciding to quit drinking. Hey, well, good for him. We then see Holly tending to her uncle, who asks her to turn off the lights because they're hurting his eyes. Holly then walks in on Josh rifling through her purse. So far since she met him, a little girl has shown up dead and he's trying to steal from her. Sounds like a keeper. Here Josh is saying that he's worried about his brother before Holly comforts him and they have their first kiss. Then Josh topples over in pain. We cut to Dr. Myra telling him that it looks like he's had a toxic chemical reaction to touching the little girl, but that he should be fine. We cut back to the sheriff, whose captain is now shown up. The sheriff tells him that the body is gone, and the captain says, well, he better come up with some answers by tomorrow, or he's going to be suspended. He also makes kind of a dick comment about how the sheriff is just a drunk, washed up big city cop who killed a kid, but that's as much as we get of that backstory. We go back to Dr. Myra, who's examining the dead girl, who comes up with the conclusion that some sort of toxic mutation has happened, which allows the body to withstand the deadly substance in it. Also that it expands in size and exits the body through the hands, and seeks more blood. And as this is being explained, 2 things are going on. One is that Vic says he isn't feeling very good before he starts acting weird, and the other is there's either some fishing line or something going on the right here, but it's quite distracting. I kept waiting for some sort of thing to pop up or something, like it was an effect, but it never did. And this is where the movie really takes a hit, is in the effects or the look of the people after they transform. I mean, just look at that, that's pretty bad. Although it does sort of remind me of a host of a cable access show I used to watch as a kid called Mad Frank Presents. Now that was a good show. Dr. Myra tries to fight off Vic, but in the end, he ends up getting her. We then see Josh and Holly at the car, proving that Mike wasn't getting it fixed and is indeed missing. Holly then tells Josh about a new conglomerate that reopened the mines outside of town called New Era. They go to investigate, Josh breaks in, and we see some guys pumping that yellow stuff into a well. Josh tries to get a little closer when the ladder breaks, and hey look, it's Mel. Mel explains that they're dumping chemical waste there. Now, here's my theory from earlier. I think Mel's dad actually owns New Era, and he was like, look boy, you have to get yourself a real job. You're gonna come work for me. And Mel was like, fine, but you're not gonna change me. I'm still not gonna wear a shirt on my days off. And his dad was like, okay, I mean, I don't care, whatever. So I don't think Mel was actually acting crazy earlier to scare them away. I just think Mel was being Mel on his day off. Anyways, as they're trying to throw him in the well, Holly crashes through and they get away, but not before breaking the hose, and it ends up hitting Mel into the well. Josh goes to tell the sheriff about New Era, and we find out that the sheriff did indeed get suspended, so he's drinking. But if you didn't know he was suspended, it looks like business as usual for him. Holly goes to get her uncle, and we see that he is transformed as well, and he tries to attack her when Josh and the sheriff show up and chase him away. They decide that they're going to go get the little girl's body and bring it to the captain just to prove what's going on, and they're going to do it during the day because the light hurts the ghouls, I guess I'll call them, eyes. So Holly and the sheriff go to Dr. Myra's and discover that she was attacked. As they're looking around, some of the ghouls show up, and again, this is in no way scary. I mean, the way they're walking with their hands up, I mean, it's just comical. It's almost like they're going to do like shadow puppets or something. Holly gets away, but the sheriff gets stuck in a closet where he finds that Dr. Myra is dead. We cut to Josh at Mrs. Mapes, where he's asking her where his brother is. He goes to check in the basement when he discovers Mike's body. I mean, just look at the body next to him. She's very obviously breathing. Like, you got hired to play a dead person. Just hold your breath when they yell action. Then we find out that Mrs. Mapes' daughter is actually a ghoul living in the basement. Josh fights her off before getting out of the basement and pushing Mrs. Mapes down the stairs in the process. We then hear Mrs. Mapes being attacked. We cut to the school where Holly sees Billy, and as she calls to him, he runs in and hides. Holly goes in and finds him hiding in the bathroom, and I mean, seriously, what the hell is up with this kid's voice?
I thought you were one of them. I was so scared.
Holly tells them that they're gonna be okay, but when they go to leave, they run into this. They hide in a stall, but the ghoul kids end up pulling Billy out and getting him. I gotta say, I'm totally fine with that. I mean, this way I don't have to hear him talk anymore. Josh shows up and helps Holly escape. Holly tells him the sheriff is at Dr. Myra's, but fails to mention that there were a bunch of ghouls there earlier. Kinda seems like an important detail to leave out. Well, at Dr. Myra's, they really drag out Holly feeling unsafe in the car as Josh is inside finding the sheriff's gun and hat. Finally, some ghouls show up and attack the car, and there is actually a cool thing they do here, since when the ghouls touch people it burns. They had a couple of hands actually burning through the glass of the car. It's a small thing, but it's pretty cool. Josh comes out and fights off the ghouls, and they drive away. But one of them is on the car, which causes them to crash. They take shelter at the gas station, where they discuss why some people turn into ghouls and others just die instead. They make some Molotov cocktails, and when Holly goes to get more bottles, she discovers Albert's there hiding out too. He tells her that he's going to use her as bait so that he can get away, and as they're walking towards the door, Josh gets the drop on him and wrestles the gun away. But as Holly is going to tie him up, Josh gets distracted, and Albert gets the upper hand again. Well, until he's pulled through the window, that is. As he's being attacked, they go outside and throw some cocktails. They end up being forced back inside the gas station, and they actually do a really good job right here of making it feel like there's no way out for Josh and Holly. I mean, you're watching it going, well, who's going to save them? I mean, everyone else is dead. Just then, the cops show up and kill all the ghouls. We see that the sheriff is still alive, and he tells them that he went over his captain's head to get help, and that some of the New Era employees came in with chemical burns and admitted everything, and that they even found an EPA guy in Mrs. Mapes' basement. Not sure why they added this end part in, because then on the radio we hear that New Era won a contract to build 10 more sites. Not really sure what they're going for here. Oh, and the sheriff quits too. And now for some fun facts. This was the last film released by Film Ventures International, or FVI. Edward Montoro, president of FVI, disappeared shortly after this release, taking $1 million of the company's money with him, and he's never been seen since. Before deciding on the title of Mutant, this movie had a couple other titles, The Pestilence and Night Shadows. Wings' real name is Gerald Hauser, but he took the stage name of Wings because he was a wingback when he played high school football. I gotta give it to him, it's a pretty memorable name. You know, even with Dr. Meyer's explanation, I'm still not quite sure what actually caused people to become ghouls in this movie. So, would I recommend watching Mutant?
Well, yes and no.
You know, it's a tough call. I mean, the movie's alright, the acting is okay, the music is pretty good, just the ghouls are pretty disappointing. I mean, it is definitely a unique plot. If you do want to check it out, I'll put a link in the description where you can watch it for free. What do you think? Have you seen Mutant? Did you like it? Let me know in the comments. In my last video, I reviewed Day of the Animals, and I'll put a link to that so you can check it out too. Well, that's going to do it for this one. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.